What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're so grateful that you're here. If you're joining us for the very first time, we are the Wave Makers. We're a community of people dedicated to creating positive waves of change for ourselves, our community, and the world. And if you are here with us, that means that you are vibing on the exact same frequency. Okay? So we are grateful for you. And we have a very, very special guest tonight. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick Teixeira. I'm one of the hosts of tonight's interview. And me and my best friend, Mike Batanzi, are going to be inviting and interviewing, a very, very special person in my life. Some of you may already know him. Some of you I know met him recently at our wedding. Justin Peterson was my very, very first mentor in business. Okay, so this was the man that, I'm breaking up a little bit. Am I good?
You're all good, bro.
Okay, fantastic. So Justin Peterson was my very first mentor. And I know for a fact, and I say this sincerely, humbly, I wouldn't be here today if Justin didn't step into my life when I was a freshman at Appalachian State University. So, man, it is a pleasure having you here with us. I got so much love, so much respect for you. Justin is a businessman, a serial entrepreneur. He's an incredible, incredible leader in the marketplace. He's a family man. He has a beautiful family. We got the pleasure, me and Haley, to hang out with him and his family several times now. And, and my heart is warm, is excited right now to learn from you and to have and give the opportunity for all of the other family members here to hear from you as well. So with that being said, Justin Peterson, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, Nick, and hello to everybody on the call. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces.
That's right.
Dennis, my man, did you bring us some special drinks to the wedding? Is that who was there? Yes, my brother.
I love it. I love it. Well, Justin, before we start this, the interview style call, why don't you just take the mic for a few minutes and introduce yourself from your own experience? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're about, and things like that. And then we're going to dive into the hot seat of this call tonight.
Sure. So kind of high level perspective for the last, I had to think about the years before this call, but for the last 8 out of the 10 years that I've been outside of school and on my own, I've been a full-time network marketer, which I have a lot of pride in. At the beginning, it was very difficult because the industry is very misunderstood, but it's given me so many different blessings in my life and extremely enjoyable opportunities. It's given me the opportunity to travel across the country. In my first 3 years in the company that I'm currently with, I visited 32 of the 50 states in 36 months. So I averaged almost one new state every month, and gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of people and hear a lot of people's stories and kind of learn where they're at and what's most important to them, which was really incredible, because oftentimes in our lives, well, not oftentimes, but literally in all of our lives, we only have so often can we meet so many people, and so whenever you get the chance to see so many, it's really a rarity. And so I tried to see it from that perspective of how often do people get to meet this many people in such a short amount of time and get a real accurate, up-to-date sense of what's on people's radars, And it was some really cool stuff that I took away from that I'm happy to share. But yeah, as Nick said, serial entrepreneur. I really want to say that I'm a full-time network marketer because, again, there's a lot of pride in that. But really who I am, what's most important to me is I am a father, which is new. My oldest is about to turn 4, and my youngest is about to turn 2. So those combined almost 6 years has probably aged me 16. If you guys have kids, you understand. If you don't have kids, trust me, it's the coolest thing that will ever happen to you. But like I told Nick, wait. And whenever you're ready, just add one more year. Just wait. And whenever it happens, your heart will explode with joy, but just wait. All right. You got plenty of time, y'all, for everyone who's new there. But I love Nick to death. Like he said, I was his first mentor. And to wrap this up, as far as like what I do, really, it's not so much like the profession. It's not so much like the product that I represent. It's not so much, the activities in business. It's the results that come from that. And just like anyone who's made a lot of money will tell you, it's not the amount of money that they made that they're most proud of. It's the person who they become, right? To earn that money that they're most proud of. But the outcomes of what I've done, really and truly, what I get like most jacked about, which most successful entrepreneurs should, is seeing transformations in other people as an example of things that you may have directly or indirectly contributed to. And I can say that I take very little, if any, credit for the man that Nick's turned into. But as you guys can tell, if you've been following him for a while, he's an extraordinary individual. So it just goes to show that doing the right work with the right frame of mind is really important to changing people's lives. And it creates ripple effects, which ultimately and hopefully create waves into the world. And with that dad joke pun, I'll spin it back to you.
I love it. I love it. Well, that was well said. And, I'm going to say, man, that is very spot on. And you 100% created a ripple effect in my life, directly and indirectly. And the thing that I valued the most in that entire experience of me becoming an entrepreneur and experiencing, really watching you, has been not only your desire to help other people, but also the integrity that you've always kept. And that's something that it's always been very clear and transparent when people speak with you. So I love that about you, man. And, and I value that a lot, period, in general. And I see that in you. So I'm super excited again to have you here. And so my very first question for you, the topic of tonight is on the power of reputation, which is so valuable in business, valuable in our love life and our relationships. Can you tell us a little bit what that means to you, and what are some of the things that you've been learning about this topic? Why is this so important that when the conversation is reputation?
Yeah. So the word reputation became relevant for me just in the last few months, really, because with the shutdown, the quarantine, depending on what industry you're in, it has affected obviously everybody. But different people in different ways. And what it's done for me is given me the opportunity to, even though what's awesome about online business is that it's thriving right now, it's still given me the opportunity to pause energetically with the rest of the world and really reflect on what's most important. And like I just mentioned before, one of the things that I'm most excited and proud of doing is seeing those transformations in other people, right? And what I noticed was that a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around the conversation of their personal image. Building a brand is a big, hot topic thing. But ultimately what it is their reputation, right? And reputation is one of those words that whenever I think about it, I immediately go back to high school. Right? You think about who's the popular kid in school, who has the best reputation. And you just think, for me personally, my visual is the jock, it's who has the best reputation. So it's either hyper positive or hyper negative, depending on if you had a good reputation or not. And oftentimes it's misconstrued with arrogance, right? But whenever you peel back the layers of the onion, reputation seems to be, in some of the research and digging that I've been doing around this whole concept, a timeless concept. Reputation is what people say about you whenever you're not there, right? An image or a brand really is like the logo, you know what I mean? And I was talking with Nick and Mike beforehand, giving an example of how I see this. But if you think about nowadays with social media, especially with how in your face everybody and everything is, a brand is something we talk about a lot, which is very forward facing. And case in point, if you think about, for example, Nike, right? Nike's brand is sports apparel. We all know that. Their image, for me, is the greatest athletes in the world wear the Nike swoosh, The greatest athletes are endorsed by Nike. It's a huge thing to have that. Their reputation, though, is cheap labor, sweatshops, right? Their morals might be a little iffy there, So their reputation is the foundation behind everything. And so reputation is a really big deal because it's what gives you the dividends later in life, depending on what you've done behind closed doors whenever nobody's watching.
Wow, that's powerful. Justin, I'm going to come in, man. I appreciate you being here, and I can feel it. One interesting thing that keeps popping up in my head is your reputation is what people think you are. Your character is what you really are. But it seems like the path that you're taking us on in the early stages of this conversation are that your reputation and should be in congruency with your character, and that reputation has way more leverage and way more power than people are giving it credit for. So I appreciate that, man. And I'm super excited to go down this path. My first question, what are the top 3 traits in somebody's reputation that you look for in regards to who you align with, who you do business with, who you kind of bring into your circle and want to be around? What are some of those traits that you look for in a reputation?
Yeah, I love that question, mainly because I wasn't prepared for it and I know the answer, which always feels good whenever you're on the other side of an interview. So the answer to that is, so I have this on my desk, and I don't know if you can see it or if it's mirrored, but it's my code, okay? My code is these 4 foundational traits, which are integrity, compassion, humility, and then this isn't an adjective, but warrior. And this is what makes up the foundation of who I am. And integrity is self-explanatory. You mentioned it in your question, the context of your question, Mike, but if you're out of integrity, I have like this hypersensitivity to people who are out of integrity. It's like I sniff it out and I'm allergic to it. And I just don't want to be anywhere around it, right? And no judgment on them, but those people are not in alignment with their true selves. They have work that they have to do that they've either neglected to do or don't have the tools to work on. But if you're out of integrity, everything else in your life is as well. So that's extremely important. Humility as well. And humility is a big deal. You know, it's a really big deal. Humility, I believe, is one of the most underrated character traits of any leader, because you think that in order to command attention and influence that you have to be a certain way. And in reality, the exact opposite. The more humility you can bring to the table, the more you impress people, and then the more influence that you have. So that's a big one for me. And then compassion, for, again, obvious reasons, especially today. I mean, like, we need more compassion in this time in human history than ever before. Compassion and empathy to listen and really listen, more so than just listen to respond. Listen without judgment. Listen with the intent to understand, not necessarily to agree, but to understand. I mean, goodness gracious, if we had that, and I don't want to bring up politics at all, but it's so hyper relevant right now, that if we could simply seek to understand someone else's point of view, period, with compassion, man, how much better would our world be right now, right? And then warrior for me, I always want to be one step forward. I never want to be on my heels. I always want to be out there fighting for something. And I don't think fight's a bad word either. I've heard that nowadays fighting and anything that at all is about violence is negative, which I don't, like violence, but like in the spiritual and like emotional world and like the battle inside of your mind, you have to embody some type of a warrior, right? So those are my 4, but to answer your question, Mike, as far as what I look for 2 things. Either somebody who embodies these character traits, because if you find somebody who embodies the same thing, boom, you naturally will connect with them. Or somebody who doesn't embody these, but still respects them. So it's somebody who reflects your code or somebody who respects your code. And those people, man, they're in for me. And I'll give you one quick example as far as somebody who respects versus somebody who reflects your code is, I've been to a lot of conferences. And so if you guys can put yourself in the frame of mind of going to a conference, oftentimes there's socials in the evening. You got to wake up early. You got to, get into the big ballroom to get your seat before the first speaker and all that stuff. Normally there's very little breaks for food. You're getting Starbucks and stuff. Well, there's 2 types of people who I love in that scenario. One is the person who reflects my same code and goes to sleep early and doesn't drink more than 1 or 2 drinks because I want to be up before everyone else and getting all my good stuff in and then being the first one in the seat because I'm trying to absorb the knowledge that's going to be given to me. And also the person who does the complete opposite but respects me for doing so. So I'll give you a quick example. I was out on a Friday night for a convention with one of my buddies who does not reflect my code whatsoever. My man is like the guy who's out like past whenever the bars are closed and then somehow sneaks in right before the first speaker. You know what I mean? And I'm out with him and I don't want to leave him, okay, because it's him and I at this conference. We don't know anybody else. And he knows that I want to go to bed. And I know he doesn't. Well, I'm going to hang with him because that's just what you do, right? And he looks at me and he goes, hey, man, I know you're itching to go to bed. Like, no worries. I got you. Like, I met a couple people. Go ahead. And I was like, oh, I appreciate you, dude, so much. He let me go to bed. He knows that I'm waking up early. Whenever I woke up, he's still passed out. I go and I get what I get from Starbucks and something that's, relatively nutritious for me. I got my water and my coffee and everything. I'm ready to rock and roll. And I get there, set up early, and I have a spot next to me, obviously, waiting for him. Sure enough, he walks in right before the first speaker. He's like sneaking in, you know what I mean? But sure enough, he brings me from Starbucks my order without asking, while he's got like the sugary drink and everything and like the pumpkin spice, whatever, like all the goodies and things, because he doesn't reflect all of my values, but he respects my values, right? That guy, he can ride with me forever. So I hope that that story kind of made it make sense to you and answer your question.
Wow, that is so good. I hope you guys are taking some notes. Drop a 33 in the chat if you're gaining value already. That's beautiful. And I love how you have your card. I don't know if you carry that with you or you just kind of keep it whenever you just remind yourself of what you're about, my guess. It sounds like you've really dove in deep into this topic. So my question, and this is a question that may apply to a lot of people that may find themselves in this call, listening to this conversation and maybe didn't put too much thought into this topic of reputation or the traits that go into it, right? Like, where does that person start? Because this is not a topic that I heard in college or in school, like it wasn't a thing. Where does someone start to build or shape or mold the reputation that they want to create for themselves and in their future?
That's a really good question. And I'm trying to think about how I started. And so I'll think out loud to answer your question because it's a really good one. Because creating a reputation for yourself, I don't believe is really something that any of us at some point in time, someone sat us down and said, okay, Eric, it's time to think about your reputation. Let's craft out the foundation of your character traits and let's figure out how to package who you are and deliver it to the world. It happens, it just happens. And so I think that where you start is, first of all, being on a call like this and having the awareness that you have control over your destiny, depending on what your beliefs are. I believe that you have control over your destiny with the help of a higher power, but nonetheless, you control ultimately what happens, many things that happen to you in your world. And so first of all, you have the awareness to start to invest in yourself. And in order to invest in yourself, you got to know where to invest, like what you need. You know what I mean? Like, do you need some physical fitness? Do you need some personal development? Do you have a business that's rocking and rolling, but you need some consulting? It's like everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. So you have to have the awareness to take a pause and evaluate what you need. And as you're doing that, you're looking inward. And as you look inward, you start to realize really who you are. And then this is, I think, the answer that I'm coming to is having the vulnerability, the humility, like the self-esteem to take rigorous honesty from people. And rigorous honesty is different than like brutal honesty. Rigorous honesty is like, it's constructive feedback from people who you value their opinion of. And this one, if you can't get through this, then you'll never understand what your reputation currently is, and therefore you won't know how to enhance it to create the reputation that you really want. So to be able to be in a place where you can just take a deep breath, know that what you're bringing in is just words from people who you trust and respect to give you constructive criticism. And that's a two-way street too. It's like, Nick, you and Mike are tight as they can be. If you ask Mike, hey man, what are things, where do I have blind spots? What are some things that I might think I'm doing good that I'm really not? Like, the responsibility really lies on Mike to actually tell you, Nick, what those things are that you don't want to hear. So the responsibility really is on him, and then also on you, obviously, to bring it in. But I'll tell you this, once you get past that and you have like a snapshot of where you are and the humility to go, okay, like it or not, this is what my reputation is. This is what people think of me right now. The fun part is going, I can design it to be whatever I want it to be. I can create this avatar character of the real me in the real world, and I can make it look, sound, seem, do whatever it is that I want. I'm not a video game player, but the most classic example is picking the character that you want to play, and then picking the strengths or talents or weapons or skills that they have, and then boosting up those skills and talents and stuff to go out and earn tokens or whatever it might be in whatever game you're playing. We're playing a game, and it just happens to be called life, and we can design the character that we want to be based off of whatever is most important to us to achieve the objectives that we have in life. So you got to be humble and vulnerable enough to receive that feedback, and then have fun and dare to dream and know that you really can create whatever, not facade, because that's definitely the wrong word, but whatever character, whatever avatar you want to be, and bring it into the world. It's really a fun topic whenever you think about it,
I love it, man. That's so powerful, dude. It's super exciting to see your brain at work, right? We're hitting you with questions where you're literally thinking through them while you're communicating. And you can tell that you're a critical thinker. In regards to me and Nick, we have very, very soundly learned that we have to ask for each other's permission. Yeah. He has to ask me if I'm open for criticism before he tells me my blind spots, because sometimes the answer is no, I'm not.
Yes.
But that ability to communicate, man, I love it. I'm interested to pick your brain. I really want to stay on reputation and identity. And I really want to pick your brain about the fact that we are so critical on ourselves as human beings. And especially as entrepreneurs, I would say that 70% of the people on this call right now are active entrepreneurs. I know for me, some things just straight up didn't work, right? And I carry that with me, and sometimes it's like, I create this reputation of especially in network marketing, you have the bunny hoppers, like the people who are jumping from one place to another, and you have this and that. And so I guess my question is, what is your philosophy in this conversation of reputation, that it's not all going to be, sunshine. It's not all going to look pretty in regards to some of the things that you've done and some of the things that you're doing and some of the way that people look at you. Yeah. How do you take on that conversation of, as I'm building my avatar, identifying that I'm not going to win 10 out of 10?
Sure. So I'll give you a question, and I'm intentionally going to try and stump you, so don't feel bad if you don't know the answer to it, Mike. But who won the Super Bowl 3 Super Bowls ago? So the fact that you had to think about it is a big deal, right?
Patriots.
Who ran against George W. Bush in his re-election and lost?
Al Gore.
Right. That was the first one. That was close, right? But in those two examples, you had the entire world's attention for spans of, in the Super Bowl, a month, right? In the playoffs, and then the week before, the entire world was watching you. So if you dropped a pass in the Super Bowl to you in the moment, your world it's ended. Everyone to you will never forget that horrible mistake that you made. But now we can't even remember who won the Super Bowl 3 years ago, especially not who dropped a pass inside of any Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So number one, people aren't really going to remember this stuff. So you mess up, I mess up, we mess up. Like, trust me, it's out of sight, out of mind. People are more worried about what other people are thinking of them, really. And then think about somebody running for the president of the United States. I mean, come on. Like, that's almost 2 years of commanding attention on purpose, for the purpose of people knowing what your reputation is. Then you lose and we don't even remember you, right? So put it in perspective. Just don't worry about that stuff. What's really big to us is not really that big. But then it reminds me of one thing. There's we've always been given this advice of, don't worry about what other people think of you. Don't worry about what other people think of you, which I think in some ways is sound advice with caveats, okay? I think that you should not worry what other people think of you, because worrying in any context is a waste of energy, right? That's just simply a negative, downward, not good use of our energy. Now, should we care what other people think? I believe absolutely, because that's feedback. The caveat is we shouldn't care what other people think enough to dictate decisions on our life because of it. We shouldn't care what other people think enough that it changes our opinions of our own self, right? We have to have the capability of having this this boundary where someone gives us an opinion, or we hear of a perspective, or we overhear someone talking about us and we hear it. There's a gatekeeper, and it's like, okay, does this person know me? They have no idea who I am. They don't know anything about my background or my context. Okay, so the fact that they called me a name, I'm not going to let that in. Okay, I'm going to hear it. I'm going to acknowledge it, but I'm not going to receive it. Now, if you hear somebody say something negative about you and they know you, right, and you respect them, then maybe you want to receive that to understand why you're getting that feedback. You know what I mean? So it's a two-part answer from what's coming to my head right now, Mike, in that really it's not that big of a deal whenever we mess up, because we're the only ones that it's playing on loop, and like the ESPN top 10 worst, it plays in our head, but no one else's, and then also we have to have the capability of knowing what feedback that we actually acknowledge and then let pass by, and what feedback we let in.
Wow, that is extremely valuable. And as you're saying that, I was actually going to ask you that question. What is the middle ground, the sweet spot between caring what people think and and so you hit it right in the nail there. So I'm super grateful. And to me, as you're saying that, I don't know if you guys caught the same thought, but having that gatekeeper, like you were saying, that stops whatever the world is throwing at you, it's a form of conversation that you're able to have within yourself, right? Like you're having a conversation within you about what is being thrown at you and deciding whether you need to take that in or not, having that discernment. Exactly. Yeah. So I love that. That is so powerful. And that's something that I've been working and practicing more over the past few months. So this is relatively new to me. Okay. Yeah. And it is very, very powerful. So I'm glad that you took it there. So I'm gonna switch just a little bit, and this is gonna be, I believe, my last question, maybe another one, we'll see. But I'm gonna switch up just a little bit. What are some habits, Justin, that you have daily, weekly, monthly, that you do by yourself, that you do with your wife, that you do with a coach, that you do with an accountability partner? Like, what are some habits that you do to reflect, to look back, to think, right, that help you continue to evolve who you are? Yeah. Like, do you have that, or do you kind of just, like, do you have a structure behind what you're a guy that have a lot of structures, which is why I'm going there, because I know that I already know the answer is yes. So I'm curious to know what that is for you, and so that people here can gain some value as well, maybe implement it in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So, I'll just go ahead and go to my favorite answer to that question, which is this journal. And I have not always been a big journaler. I've always really valued what it does and been a big believer in it, but I haven't executed in it. Like a lot of us value like going to the gym, but we don't always do it. A lot of us understand waking up early is really good, but we don't always do it, right? We know that journaling is a life hack. We don't always do it. So what I did, and if you don't have children, please still listen, because I think there's an even cooler way to apply it if you do not have children. I write to my boys every day, and thanks to the quarantine, I have made it a concrete daily. I never miss a single day, whereas before it was as many days as I could, but I would allow days to slip by. I haven't missed a day since, because I started journaling about it, because I knew we were living through history, right? So think about how freaking cool it would be if you found your great grandparents' journal about so today we heard that we're going to war with the Nazis, and their firsthand account of what life was like at the beginning of World War II. Like, how cool would that be, right? Well, we're living through as significant of world history and United States history as World War II today. Like, believe it or not, like this is that. I mean, this is that. So I started writing about it because I knew it'd be valuable. But even before then, that's just how I got into the concrete daily habits. I didn't want to miss a day. But this is what I do, and this is what I love about it. And again, if you don't have kids, still listen. I'll give you the reason why. So I write to my boys, and what it does is it puts me in this super cool, like almost like alternate reality thing. Okay, like stay with me. I'm writing, so because I'm writing literally with a pen and paper, it slows you down enough that you're in the present. It's hard to not be in the present when you write, which is one of the powerful things about it. It slows you down. And so I'm in the present moment as I journal, and I'm journaling about something that has happened or how I have been feeling or something that I'm going through, always trying to like document things that they want to know, just like cool things that they're doing that would be cool. Like literally this morning, I wrote about how they're sitting to the right of me on the couch, eating their favorite snack and drinking their juice and all this stuff. And like, I'm describing it in detail. And like, that's really cool. And like my youngest one, like took it and like scribbled it and I left it there. Cause again, cool, right? So I'm in the present as I'm journaling. I'm writing about something that has already happened. So I'm in the past at the same time. And the whole time I'm writing it for, Molly's got it, my future kids. As in my 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, I'm going to give it to them whenever they're young adults. So I'm writing to my 2-year-old, my toddlers, but I'm writing to their grown self, right? So it's like all of these different like realities that you're in at once. And it's just so freaking cool to do it. And then like, this is my second journal and my other one is locked in my fireproof safe. It's like one of the most valuable items I have, you know? And my second one actually got stolen out of my truck a little while ago, along with my brand new laptop. And I could care less about my laptop because I realized my journal is in there. I was like, I couldn't believe it happened. But like to go through and like see the text and the ink you start to put in and to know they're going to read it is really powerful. So that's one. And then quickly, and you hear this a lot, but Mike and I were talking about this on our prep call. Some things that you hear a lot, those who have heard it frequently will discount it and say, I already know that. But I would invite you to have a different perspective and go, I've heard this so many times. Am I implementing it? Because clearly it's a consistency, okay? And what has been, by and large, one of the best life hacks for me, and I cannot give it a stronger endorsement, is waking up super early. Like early as shit, like whenever it's still dark and no one else is awake, okay? And I cussed on purpose so you guys heard me there, because I'm telling you, if you're used to waking up at 7, you wake up at 6:30, that's not going to do it, okay? And if you're not a morning person, join the club, me either. But guys, I am a living life to the fullest person. I am a living in abundance, but realizing there's a scarcity of time person. I am somebody who realizes that 4 years ago felt like 4 months ago, and 4 years in the future will feel like 4 days. You know what I mean? And so I want to squeeze as much life out of the days as I possibly can in a positive way. And my alarm clock is right now, I think I'm down to 4:10, and I'm not doing this to brag. It's just waking up. You wake up to an alarm clock, right? But it's 4:10. That's what I'm down to. And it started at 4:30, and I'm just like incrementally getting it down until I get down to 4. The hack to the hack is have any of the coffee machines, the cheapest ones do it, is the automatic setting. Y'all put it 10 minutes before your alarm goes off so it's done brewing and your house smells like coffee, because that's like the presents down the chimney from Santa on Christmas morning. If I wake up and I forgot to do coffee the night before, oh, it's horrible. But I'm telling you, and I know I'm going over my time on this answer, but this is a really important one, okay? I'm telling you, if you just listen to me on this one, you'll just go into hyper supersonic drive in anything you're trying to do, okay? So if you read about Thomas Edison and the different brain waves, okay, and you don't have to learn about Thomas Edison to learn about brain waves, okay, but like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, and I think he's actually the one who told me a story, and I believe that it's the theta brain waves. Don't quote me on that, just look it up. But I believe it's the theta brain waves that are similar to like in and out of deep sleep, okay? So if you're dozing off, okay, you're starting to tap into those, again, I think theta brainwaves. Well, Edison, as he was trying all of his inventions, anytime he'd get stumped, okay, and he had this like mental block and he couldn't figure out how to get around it, he would sit in his armchair in his lab, and he had a metal plate on the ground next to his chair. And in his hand, he would hold a metal ball, and he would allow himself to doze off and take a nap while holding this ball. Meanwhile, he's pondering the problem he's trying to solve. So what he's doing is he's trying to get his mind to dip into those theta brainwaves while contemplating what he's having a problem with. Once he dozes off, he's going to lose the ball. It's going to hit the tin plate. It's going to wake him up. And what he says is he has the answers to the things that he was trying to figure out. Well, I haven't had any sort of eureka moments like that. I also don't sit in armchairs holding these balls and stuff. But what I have experienced is when I wake up, what I used to do was I started doing my reading, and I would do my journaling, which was fine. It was great. But that's just routine stuff. One day, I went straight to my work, things that require creative capacity. And you would think that while you're just waking up, your mind's like, I'm not trying to work. But guys, this is like a secret. Your mind is ready to it's like it's already in the proper brainwaves. You immediately tap into flow. Like you feel tired and sluggish and asleep, your mind's like, let's rock and roll. And so from the hours of 4-ish to 6:37, if I'm lucky, whenever my boys wake up, those 2.5 to 3 hours, I get more done than I used to get done the whole day. It's the coolest thing in the world. So you're not going to like it at first, but trust me, do it. And then the last thing too, I reference you guys to a guy named Andy Frisella. He owns First Form Nutrition. He's a bad dude, man. He's a bad dude. And if you don't like curse words, don't listen to him. But if you like Tony Robbins, he cusses all the time too. But this dude just created a program called 75 Hard that I'm on. I won't tell you about it because we don't have time, but go look it up. But basically, the underlying philosophy of it is the little things count, and it's 75 days of doing a checklist of things, and you cannot miss on any of them. That's the basis of it. You cannot miss on any of them. One of them is like just taking a progress picture, and if you miss, you have to start over on day one because it's teaching you the power of consistency, even in the things that you think don't matter. Because the things that you think don't matter, you slip whenever you're in momentum. You're like, oh, everything's going good. It's fine. I'll just do that later. Whenever you go like that, that's whenever you slip up and you fall on your face. And man, it's been really, really awesome. I've had to start over twice, but I'm kicking ass with it. I'm really enjoying it. So great questions, you guys. So Mike, I'll throw it to you, brother.
There's so much brain power over there. I'm getting fired up listening to you talk, man. The theta brainwaves, writing to my future kids, and everything that you're talking about. I love it. But here's my thing, right? I'm a little bit of an interesting character in regards to the fact that I've been around enough success to know that they're humans and they just want to be treated like humans. I think that sometimes we get somebody with your intellect level on a call, and some people on our call get a little bit disconnected, right? There's like, oh, well, he's so far ahead of me. I can't, there's that struggle to relate. So I like to pull out a question, and this is going to be my last question. Would you mind sharing some of your fears with us? I think that it is in human nature that we fear, right? And somebody as successful as you and as dialed in, as consistent and thriving, and you have your family life and you have your business and things are going well, you're still a human at the end of the day. Would you mind opening up your heart to this community and just sharing some of the things that scare you?
Yes, such a good question. Man. The truth is my biggest fear is in any way losing my sons, my boys. And that's a tough one, man, because you can't always control where they're going to be and what's going to happen to them. So that's a constant battle in my mind of being the overprotective dad and knowing that something can happen to them at any time, and confronting the fear of what if my worst fear were to happen and how am I going to deal with that? Gary Vee, he likes to talk about, his hack to being grateful and thinking about the worst case scenario and realizing that it hasn't happened. And so you have nothing to worry about. And so I try to confront that fear and think about the worst thing that could happen and play out those horrible scenes in my mind and then try to prepare myself to be strong. And it's just really hard. So that's the first thing that pops in my head. The second thing, truthfully, is what we've been talking about, worrying about what other people think. That's been a big struggle of mine. I have starting in network marketing and having that kind of be like the incubator for me as an adult. You're very influenced in your early 20s, especially whenever you are in a business where you're taught that you have to attract people to you. And so your first appearance, your reputation, your image is a big deal. And if you don't know who you are as you start to build that, you can create this bubble that eventually will pop. And that bubble's popped in my career, and I've fallen straight on my face. And the fear, and luckily I've climbed out too, but the fear of people, of like me being exposed, was really tough. And I think what it really is the what is it that is it the imposter syndrome? That's what it is. Okay. So the imposter syndrome, right? Like whenever you start to find some success, you're doing good in anything, your mind goes like, is this real? Like you don't really deserve this, and you get scared of success. And that was a huge fear of mine, especially in the moments where like the highlights of my career so far. I mean, dude, you just think like, okay, like what if I'm exposed? What if they realize I'm not as good as they think that I am? Especially whenever you're being edified. It's like, this person's done all these things and all these accomplishments and stuff. And inside, like you said, Mike, like you're just you, you know what I mean? Like you're just you. Like the way that you, Katie, or you, Colin, or Elena, or anybody, whenever you look in the mirror and you see yourself and you have your internal thoughts that include fear and worry and anxiety and all that stuff, like the most hyper achieving people like have those same fears and anxieties and worries and stuff. They just learn to overcome them and realize that it's not as bad after you overcome them, but everyone has them. Like the best speakers still have butterflies before they go on stage. Like before this call, I was taking deep breaths, getting ready, like knowing that, not knowing what the questions are would give me anxiety. And being worried that if I didn't answer them well, I might be exposed. The guest speaker might not know the right answer to a question of a topic that he wants to talk about. Like all those anxieties pop up for me just like they would for anybody else, man. So ironically enough, which is why I'm interested in the topic, one of my fears or insecurities or just weaknesses is putting too much attention in what other people think of me. And that's just the truth, man. And then lastly, I'll just throw this one in here too, because my first mentor said this, and I agree with it, is and I'm not trying to be cliche, like this is really the truth for me, like letting life pass me by and not achieving my goals, like that regret as an older human being is freaking terrifying, man. Because everyone says like just go to a senior living place, like talk to an old person, all they'll give you is what they wish they should have done, and like we know that. We write it on our boards, like we think about it, we post it and stuff. But then again, like what have you accomplished in the last 100 days? We all can go so much further. And so I'm just like, I'm kind of scared of like, I mean, dude, I'm 32. I can grow a freaking beard now. You know what I mean? I got 2 kids and I'm married. Like y'all, like that's adult stuff. I own a house and 2 cars and I literally have a picket fence in the backyard with a dog. I'm like the most typical textbook, like 2.5 kids, like American, like all that stuff. I live in the suburbs. Like what? This doesn't happen. Like I'm like 22 in my head. You know what I mean? I still feel like I feel like I'm a young adult, but I'm an adult as it gets, man. So the fear of not doing all the things I want to do is very real for me. It's super real for me. So thank you for asking that question. It's a really good one.
How do you use those fears, and create great things with it?
So my last birthday in June, where I turned 32, the birthday present to myself that I got, can't remember what it's called, but you could probably find it really easily on Google. I fell for one of the Instagram ads that are always really cool, but it's a chart of 100 years in weeks. Okay. And it's a bubble chart. I don't have it framed, or else I'd show it to you right now, because I need a frame that I can actually write through. But it's 100 years. So it's 100 rows of bubbles, and there's 52 bubbles. So the idea is that you put in what your age is. It fills in, for me, 32 years and weeks worth of bubbles. And then you see the remaining weeks of your life if you were to live to be 100 years old. Each week you fill in a bubble. So yeah, and then you saw an ad for it. So literally you're seeing the progression of your life go by. So that takes you from the minutia of everyday life to seeing a snapshot of like the clock in the game, you know? And like whenever you're on the field, you're in the minutia of the plays and everything like that. But then you look up and you see the scoreboard, which really is like your relationships and your bank accounts and your health and stuff, which you know, and then the time clock. But in life, we don't have a time clock because we don't know how long we're going to live. But this gives you a visual of if you were to live to be 100, which I think is a great goal, you know what I mean? And just try to beat it. If you live to be 100, you can see the progression of how much time you have left. So every time you fill in that little dot, and it keeps getting quicker and quicker and quicker, you fill out dots, what feels like days, whenever it's literally every week, it starts to make you focus on doing the best you can with the time that you have right now, because that's what it's about. You know what I mean? You're muted. Oh,
That's
you're
powerful.
muted.
Drop some twos in the chat for Mr. Justin Peterson. Justin, you got a closing 30 seconds, right, before we end this recording, for the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to watch the recording, and we get to plug in for just 10 minutes with the people who are on the call and get a little bit more intimate. 30 seconds, close it out. What do you got for the people?
Okay. So in the world of sales, we know the phrase ABC and what that stands for, right? So if you know what ABC stands for in sales, you can go ahead and drop it in the comments. But for me, as it pertains to reputation, I would say it's always be campaigning, okay? Should always be closing, but always be campaigning. And the metaphor there is, imagine if you were to run for president at some point in your future. Every single interaction that you have with any human being at any stage of your life, big, small, significant or not, is a potential vote in your favor. And so if you live life always campaigning, you literally never know whenever that one seemingly insignificant interaction where you got a thumbs up from that person comes back to pay you big dividends in the end. You just never know. The most unlikely people that you just are kind to or considerate to, or just take 30 extra seconds to get to know, or whatever it might be, you might have completely forgotten about it, but they won't forget about it. And whenever it counts, if you believe in a higher power and karma and the universe and all that good stuff, man, right whenever you need it, that person can show up and help your ass out. So always be campaigning would be the last little drop I'd give you. And before we go to questions and answers, thank you again for letting me hop on the call. And it's really an honor to be on it. And you guys had some really, really truthfully awesome questions. You rocked it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. It was amazing. I know I gained a lot of value. For those of you watching the recording, we hope that you enjoyed as much as we did here live. We're going to hang around for another 10 minutes or so for the people that are here live. If you're watching the recording, go down to the description box, go follow Justin, go see what he's about, continue to learn from him throughout our life. And brother, thank you. God bless you. And I'll see you guys